Facebook and to different groups this morning. But again, it's kind of last minute. I do have another one this evening that I'll be doing. And so we'll just see. Hopefully it will gain some traction as I go along. And, you know, feel free to share this. You'll get the recording afterwards. So if you want to go back and re-listen or re-watch anything that I do today, you'll have the recording sent to you. And you can share the recording with others as well. So the more people that I can impact who need some calm, the better, so that I can help more people with this. I've been tuning in to Facebook and friends and finding out, you know, just what's going on out there in the business world, in the medical field. There's just, again, this residual underlying feeling of fear with the uncertainty and the change. I mean, change is challenging enough, right? Any kind of change, but this is massive change, and people have a hard time with even minor change. So that's a good mental note. I'm gonna write that down. Is do something specifically on the fears and challenges people have with change. Okay. All right, so we're at 5 past. I'm going to go ahead and get going. I'm going to mute you right now. So if you have a question for me or want to respond to anything that I'm posing, you can just type that in the chat. And if you have something longer, just say, you know, ask to be unmuted if you feel like it would be quicker to have you speak it instead of type it. Okay, but this is going to be, I'm going to be giving you some instruction of some of these different techniques today. And so if you have any questions as I go through it, let me know. All right, so let me just start off by saying welcome. And whether you're watching this live or whether you're watching it later on as a recording, I welcome you and I thank you for taking the time, and I really acknowledge you and honor you for taking time out in the whatever busyness, whatever chaos might be going on in your world right now as a result of the you know, the virus and the social distancing and having to work from home or deal with your kids being at home, or you're in the medical field and you're on the front lines of this, or you know, wherever you are, whatever you're facing. I honor that you're here right now to learn some tools that are going to help you to better manage this, because there's a lot that we can't control over the situation right now, but know that there is a lot that you can control. So the 3 things that we can always control are the what we're giving our focus or our energy to, what meaning we're giving to events, and recognizing that events in and of themselves don't have any true inherent meaning. They can have consequences that are absolute and that are true, but the meaning that we're choosing to give to this is something that we have control over, and different people are giving these situations different meanings. Some people are finding fear in it, and some people are finding gifts and opportunities within it. So know that that's always something that you can learn how to control. And then the third thing that we can control is our response to things. How we choose to emotionally respond to it, and that will depend on the meaning that we choose to give it and how what we're focusing on, and the actions that we choose to take in response to an event that's occurring. So those are the 3 things that we can begin to control. So where your focus is going, what meaning you're choosing to give to the different events going on, and then what emotional responses you're going to have and what actions you choose to take. One of the things that I teach, it's actually the foundation for all that I teach and all that I do in the work that I do, is the tier formula. So the TEAR formula, TEAR, we actually look at it backwards. R is the results that we're getting in our lives or in any particular experience. And so if we're not happy with the results that we're getting, then we have to look to what's driving the results. And the first apparent thing that people look at is the actions that they're taking. And most people understand that if we want different results, we have to take different actions, right? We have to do some things differently. But this is where people get stuck on the taking the different actions, because they're usually taking it without changing the drivers to the action, or really looking at and examining the drivers to the action, which is the T and the E part of the formula. So that is our thoughts and then our emotions. So our thoughts are the meaning that we're giving to it, and how we're choosing to focus, and that creates a thought process for you. And then the emotion that you're experiencing. And if either your thoughts or your emotions or both of them are not in alignment with really the true results that you want to be getting, then your actions are not going to get you the results that you want. So in order to change the actions, to change them more quickly, to change them more effectively, to change them more permanently, you need to change the thoughts and you need to change the emotions that are not conducive to creating the result that you want. So that's the TEAR formula. And so what I really focus on in my work as a neuroscience-based coach is how to look at your thoughts and begin to change them. And a large majority of your thoughts are comprised of your beliefs and your belief systems, and how to recognize the limiting beliefs that you have that are a large part of your thinking process, how to begin to change the limiting beliefs that aren't serving you, they're limiting you, holding you back, and the emotional responses that you're having to things. And a lot of times we feel like we can't control the emotional responses, or it's just like, that's my emotion. That's just what that's just what I'm feeling. I can't change it. I can't control it. But the truth is that you can. And these techniques can teach you how to do that. And a lot of what is created from so we're really working with the brain and the heart, and they're both at play. And the brain is more about the thinking and the heart is more about the emotions, but our body also stimulates that within us. So these somatic techniques that I use with my clients, that I teach them, some that I'm going to be teaching today and over the next week, are things that can help to shift our thoughts and shift our emotions. So that's the TEAR formula. And unless and until you learn how to work with and change the thoughts and the emotions that you're experiencing, the actions will never change or change effectively, or they will only change temporarily. And then the results will not change, or again, the results will only change temporarily. So if we really want more lasting changes, and to have those changes happen and those results happen more automatically, unconsciously, it goes on autopilot where you're not having to give it so much conscious effort, and it just becomes the new norm of how you function. Then you have to program it at the subconscious level, and you have to go at the thoughts, and you have to learn how to control your emotional state and make sure that you're in the right emotional state in order to create the right actions and the right results. So I'm going to pause here for a moment to kind of take that in and read some of the comments here. Okay. Yeah, so let me just share here what somebody put in the chat. There are stages to the changes that have been going on. At first, I thought it was just blowover. Yeah, and I, think a lot of people did, and that, it was oftentimes being blown out of proportion by other people. And then I noticed the face masks coming out and the face mask shortage. Then we lost the toilet paper, which is crazy, right? And then the hand sanitizers and things I took for granted would always be there. And then there came the isolation, right, with the social distancing recommendations. Started wondering if I would ever have my life back. Then I started wondering if I would keep my life at all. So I'm imagining you're wondering if that's related to, catching the virus and having it be one of the rare instances where, you could die from it. So, again, we need to turn panic into perspective, right? So the natural inclination of the mind is to go to the worst case scenarios, especially for a lot of people. They just have trained their brains to do that based on the experiences that they've had in their lives that really were extreme, and they kind of, in order to survive, they had to do things to the extremes, or they were experiencing things to the extremes. So that's their normal, and that's how they trained their brain to respond. Um, so it could have been a long period of time, especially when you were a child growing up, where there was a lot of dysfunction, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of extremes. And so your brain and your nervous system got wired to respond in that way. Or in order for you to survive, you had to think worst case scenario ahead in order to try to mitigate the damage or minimize the extreme negative response to protect yourself. So again, there's a lot of dynamics going on with that, and I won't cover all of that today. I can give that a little bit in pieces over time. But I think life is not going to go back to normal. So let me just be, kind of put that out there. We're going to have a new normal once things do die down from this, and they will die down. This is the cycle of life, right? There's ups and there's downs. We had 9/11. That was huge, huge disruption. And in a lot of different ways, to our infrastructure, to the travel industry, to our sense of safety and security, to our military, to our home lives, to how we interact with others. And there were some good things that came out of it, as well as the the bad, or the challenges. But the thing is, our paradigms have shifted, and things have been turned upside down, and weaknesses have been uncovered, and ways that people were not prepared for, for inevitable challenges, and larger level challenges. All right, we're seeing that in the weather right now as well, and we're having to learn to adapt to that, and that's becoming the new normal. Unfortunately, things like school shootings are also, or even workplace shootings. We had one last year last year here in Virginia Beach. Unfortunately, these things are becoming the new normal. But within all of that, we also need our perspective, to recognize that there's a lot of good that has come and can come out of these challenges. We're being faced with new ways of looking at things, and new ways of using technology, and new ways of interacting with people. So things are not going to go back to the way that they were. There's going to be changes. And so here again, we go back to that fear, that resistance to change, and the uncertainty of that. But I want to share some things, again, some insights today, and then move into some techniques that can begin to shift things. So just know that there's going to be a new normal. There are some things that are going to get back to more of the original normal, but there's going to be things that will never go back to the way that they were, or there are going to be things that have been adapted and will stay adapted to the new normal, once the more imminent threat has gone away, once the virus has gone through its shelf life, so to speak, and people are going back into the recovery phase, who did get ill, and we're not continuing to pass it on to new recipients. So that will happen. We're trying to shorten the curve from that happening, flatten the curve, and I've been sharing some things about that as well. that I've been finding online. But we also need to make sure that we are watching the stimulus that we are exposing ourselves to. The constant stream of checking social media feeds, checking the news in the different ways that we do, whether you're reading it, whether you're catching it online, whether you're turning on the TV, whatever it might be. There's a benefit to having more sources of information, but there's also a detriment to that. So one of the things that I'm really going to encourage people to do is not necessarily go on a news fast, but really decrease the amount that you're doing it. You don't need to be checking it every 5 minutes, and there's not likely to be something that's going to happen within the span of a few hours that's going to require your immediate action. Right? Things are coming in trickles, so you want to be informed, but go for a span of at least a couple of hours without checking back in to the news, checking to see if anything new, right? A lot of it's just regurgitation, and any important new things that come out, you'll know about it, and you'll be able to respond to it. So what I suggest that you do is don't check your news first thing in the morning. Be centered and focused on yourself, your family, what you're needing to do now at home in your routines, especially if you're staying home and you're not going out, if you have kids who are home from school. So focus on starting your day off in a state of calm and purposeful intention of what you want, what kind of mood and emotion you want to set for yourself and your environment for the day. And maybe even start off your day with some meditation or some prayer or some hypnosis. I'm going to be providing a free hypnosis audio. It's called the Safe Healing Bubble. So I'll be supplying that as a resource from today's call that you can download and get started listening to. You can listen to it at night as you're trying to drift to sleep, to calm yourself and be able to get a better night's sleep. A lot of people are experiencing insomnia right now because they can't shut their minds down, or there's so much negativity and fear and anxiety in their brains that they can't shut that down. So if you have something else to focus on, it's got some soothing music in the background, it's got some guided imagery to it, then that's what your brain can focus on, so that you can shut down the primitive brain back here, the fight or flight system, and you can shut down and soothe the sympathetic nervous system, which I'll talk about in a moment. Activate the peace center of your brain and your nervous system, and be able to get a better night's sleep. But going back to the media fast, so I recommend give yourself at least an hour in the morning of more purposeful, more peaceful, intentional, calming activities first thing in the morning for at least the first hour. Maybe even exercise, that would be a great thing. It's not like we can't go outside, right? We can go outside, so take advantage of nature. In here in the eastern coast, things are starting to warm up, which is nice, and hopefully that's going to be good news for the virus slowing down as well, if it is more of a cold weather kind of virus. It's still, I think, unsure. We're still a little bit unsure right now if that's going to be the case. But hopefully that will be the case. But get outside, get out into the fresh air, get outside in nature and enjoy everything that's blooming right now, unless you have allergies and that actually sets you off, especially with the respiratory things, because you want to protect your respiratory system at this time. But if you can, get out and enjoy nature and start off your day that way. So don't check the news, don't check your social media feeds, don't go online at all for at least the first hour of your day. And then figure out how you want to start your day, what kind of energy, what kind of emotions you want to start your day with, and do things that will create that. and then maybe check it, an hour later, or at least go till noontime if you can, and set your own agenda. Because if you don't set your agenda and follow your agenda, then you're going to be at the mercy of other people's agendas. So as soon as you open your email, as soon as you open your media feed, as soon as you go on your phone, uh, other people's emotions, other people's information, opinions, all of that, their demands are going to set your agenda. So you want to be really clear on yours. And then maybe in the evening, right? Dinner time or after dinner, try not to watch the news while you're eating, because it's going to upset your digestive system. And check it. Just, what's most important right now, get the highlights. If you can, don't watch the news, just get some of the highlights on, a summary, or again, something on your phone. So you're not sitting there for 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, glued to the TV and watching CNN and watching all the stuff. Just really minimize it. Get the highlights, get to what's most important, get what you can take action on. And then the rest, just, don't worry about that. Let it go. If it's not something you can take action on, then it's not helpful for you. Do not watch the news. Do not feed anything negative or disruptive to your brain within a minimum of 1 hour, but preferably 2 hours of the time that you're planning to go to bed. And I know that's, for some people, that's going to be hard, but again, we've got to change our behaviors, and we've got to be more in charge of what we're putting in our brains, right? And the energy that we're surrounding ourselves with. So if you're watching disruptive things right before you go to bed or within an hour of going to bed, you're going to have a hard time with sleeping, and your dreams are going to be restless. You're going to be waking up. You're going to be reinforcing the negative feeling within you. So I really encourage you, a minimum of 1 hour before bedtime, shut out all the external stimulus and the news and the negativity, and do something calming. Have a calming evening ritual with yourself, with your significant other, with your children, with your family. Tuck them into bed. Use some of these techniques. I'm going to be teaching some EFT today, and this is a technique that kids really pick up on even better than adults. Adults tend to kind of go, oh, it's kind of weird, it's kind of funny, or they poo-poo it, but it is science-based. Everything that I teach is science-based. So so use it with your children, and help them to calm themselves and get a good night's sleep, and deal with the changes and the disruption. And as you're tapping together, you're going to be calming yourself and your nervous system, your brain, as you also help them to do that. So having some wind down ritual that includes meditation, prayer, hypnosis, tapping, a soothing bath or a shower, hot cup of tea, anything nourishing is going to be beneficial to just help you to wind down, so that when you do get into bed, you're able to shut your brain off and you're able to have more peaceful sleep, because you need to keep your energy up. If you're not getting enough sleep, it's going to affect your immune system, making you more susceptible, or making, if you do get the virus, making it more extreme than it would normally have been. So sleep, water, exercise, and these positive resources to calm your mind and your nervous system are going to help to keep your immune system protecting you if you do happen to be exposed to the virus. Okay, so I'm just going to stop for a moment where you settle into what I just shared and think about, how can you begin to adjust some of your media exposure? What are you willing to do with that? What are you willing to modify? Right? Today, start something today. It doesn't have to be perfect, but do something a little bit different today. and then, maybe do something a little bit more tomorrow, and then wind down a little bit more, the day after that. So, you don't have to be perfect with it. You don't have to go to extremes with it, but just start to do something different. Because remember, if we keep doing the same thing, same way, we're going to keep getting the same result, right? And it's time to make some of those changes. All right. Make fear your friend. Know that fear is oftentimes a friend, but it can be a foe. Fear is there as a temporary signal to let us know there's something that might be a threat to us, something we have to pay attention to, something we might need to respond to. And then once we have the information, once we've been flagged by the negative emotion like fear, then we don't need the emotion anymore. We don't need to keep holding on to that emotion or keep driving that emotion, keep going back to that emotion in order to get what we need. So any negative emotion, like fear, like any kind of pain, physical pain, emotional pain, is just supposed to be a immediate, temporary signal, trigger to pay attention. Now, unless there's some real, tangible, imminent threat right here that we have to fight off physically or run away from, flee from, to get ourselves to safety or to protect ourselves, then we don't need to be activating this, the hind area of our brain, the primitive brain. That's the autopilot for imminent danger, threat that we can fight off or run away from. A third response with the activation of the fight or flight center of the brain, the amygdala back here, is freeze. And in nature, freezing can be beneficial so that we're not moving and we're less likely to be seen by the predator, and the predator will go away. And then we're safe, and then we can start moving again. In modern day, the freeze response usually comes as procrastination, right? Not doing anything, or just sitting there and worrying instead of taking action, right? If you're taking action, then you can't worry, right? Worry is inaction, right? And you're just stuck. Worry doesn't help you. I posted a cute little picture last night on my Facebook page. It was Charlie Brown and I think it was Linus sitting next to him. And he was talking about how worry doesn't change anything. And it only wastes the peace of the moment. I can't remember exactly what the quote was. So worry is freeze mode. And you're just ruminating and going over and over and over, but you're not taking any effective action. So worry does not serve you, and fear only serves you temporarily to make you aware of something that you might need to pay attention to and to take some action on. And then once you take the action, you don't need the fear anymore, right? You go into action mode. You don't need the pain anymore. When you hold on to the fear, then it becomes anxiety. So anxiety is fear that's held onto, or fear that is going in an extreme way. So we want to be able to clear the fear so it doesn't get into anxiety. Or if you notice that your nervous system, your conditioned responses have caused you to go into anxiety mode, where you have this real strong physical feeling within you, then you can utilize these techniques. Okay, now it's going to take a little bit longer. The more extreme your emotion is, usually a little bit longer it's going to take for you to use some of these calming methods to get yourself back to a more reasonable level, or these things can even clear it totally in the moment or for a long period of time. And what we're essentially doing is we're helping to deactivate the fight or flight mechanism in the brain that initially said there was something you had to pay attention to and that created that sense of fear. You can use this with any kind of negative emotions, and to pay attention. So we don't necessarily want to immediately clear the negative emotion, because we need to examine what the negative emotion is trying to cause us to be aware of. We need to be able to identify what is valuable and valid in the alert system. Okay, so whatever the negative emotion is, it's an alert system. We need to examine it for a moment and sometimes just allow ourselves to feel it, but don't stay stuck in it. Right? And don't try to immediately get rid of it either. Stop, let yourself feel what the emotion is. What's the valuable information that's within it, within the signal? What do you need to look at? What do you need to examine? What do you need to change? What can you do? Then you can take the action and release the emotion, because you don't need the emotion anymore once you start to get into action mode. Okay? So, okay, so reading another thing here in the chat. Isolations drive me crazy. Yeah, it's the social distancing can be creating isolation, and loneliness is its own pandemic that is global, and it's one of the number one issues that people say that they're experiencing nowadays, is a sense of loneliness. Which can be somewhat ironic because of our ability through technology to have greater reach to more people, but we're not connecting really deeply. I think social media has created more of superficiality and reaching people in negative ways instead of in positive ways. So comment here, Facebook's an outlet, but then I run into stuff that isn't good for me. Yeah, so you got to be really mindful of that. And sometimes you need to, unfriend people who are negative impact, or take a break. They now have that option on Facebook, take a break. And that's okay to do that. Look at what's coming through your news feed, and there are settings you can disconnect from groups. You can set your features on Facebook for your news feed and what's coming in, what's not coming in. So you do have some control over a lot of that. And again, how frequently you go and you look at that and read things. What about fear, lasting phobias, fear of heights? Yeah, so these tools can work on clearing totally, completely, forever phobias. So I work with a lot of people, different phobias. Typical ones: driving, flying, bridges and tunnels, small spaces. I've worked with people with aviation, not aviation, apiary. So I worked with a woman who was afraid of birds and helped her with that. So yeah, I love these tools. They're so effective in clearing phobias forever. So you can learn to utilize them for that as well. And EFT is one of the great techniques that I use to help with that. But let me first, before we go into the EFT, which stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques, and for those of you who don't really know me, maybe I should have done an intro at the front, but I wanted to just kind of dive right in. You can learn more about me on my website, www.themindtrainingcenter.com. Go there. You can see all the different ways that I work with people, individuals, and businesses, salespeople, as well as companies, organizations, businesses, and the different tools that I use. But I do traditional coaching combined with the neuroscience-based techniques to help people to use their brains more effectively, to learn how to think more effectively, to emote more effectively, control their emotions more effectively, and utilize these tools for themselves. So the first thing that I want to teach you is something that I actually learned the other day, because I've been tuning into my coaches and my mentors and my network of of people who have great information and resources to share. And I'm going to be disseminating a lot of this information that I'm getting from them out to you, so you can get the benefit of some of their information, as well as my own work, my own insights and suggestions. But this one is going to help very quickly to soothe soothe the sympathetic nervous system and begin to engage the parasympathetic nervous system. So, sympathetic nervous system is the fight or flight nervous system, the fight or flight mechanisms that are activated by the amygdala back here in response to some perceived threat. And so it stimulates the nervous system and the release of cortisol and adrenaline, and gives us the ability to fight or run off from whatever the threat might be. But the sympathetic nervous system was only designed to work on a short-term basis, quick and short-term, and then to subside and get back to us functioning more from the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the state of peace and calm and neutrality, normalcy. So a lot of people are really active in their sympathetic nervous system right now, and they're not having very much time in that recovery phase and that neutral phase of the parasympathetic. So this technique helps to work with what's called the vagus nerve, and that runs through the body from the back of the head, the spine, down towards the abdomen. And so to help to soothe this nerve that gets activated in times of seeming threat, one of the things you can do is what I have named the Vagus Smoothie. The Vagus Smoothie, and it's V Victor Agus, not like Las Vegas. So it's a U, not an E. The vagus nerve, some people pronounce it vagus nerve, but it's Vagus Smoothie. And so what you're going to do is start here at the base of your throat here, and slowly glide your hand down. My hand will disappear from the screen, but slowly glide your hand down to your abdomen. And then you can bring it back up again and slide it down the front of your body to your abdomen. Just a slow, smooth, like you're smoothing out like a wrinkle that's here in your clothes, right? All the way down, and then start up it again and smooth downward. You can also rotate your hands. So I go down and then I bring my left hand up and smooth down, and then I bring my right hand up while my left hand is still going down to my abdomen. So you're kind of creating a circular motion here of continual smoothing. And ideally you want to do this for about 2 minutes while you focus on your breath. Taking deep breaths in and full breaths out. You could also choose to take the deep breath in while you glide one hand down and pause, and then when you exhale, glide the other hand down. So inhale, glide down, and then when you exhale, glide down. So you're slowing your breath, which is also helping to calm the amygdala and the release of cortisol and adrenaline, and help to calm the vagus nerve and the parasympathetic nervous system. So doing that for about 2 minutes while you continue to focus on deep inhales and exhales. Okay. Then the next thing that you can do is to go into what we call EFT tapping. EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Technique, and the tapping is a nickname for doing the technique, because oftentimes we're tapping these what called meridian points or acupressure points on the body, these particular points on the body that have a direct impact to the brain and the amygdala and the nervous system. So it's working with the brain, it's working with the body, the nervous system, and it's helping to deactivate the fight or flight mechanism response, and it starts to actually activate this area of the brain back here, which is more fully developed in humans, which allows us the abilities of logic, reason, future casting, uh, creativity, problem solving. That's all happening from here. This is not engaged in problem solving. This is engaged in conditioned response, habit, immediate reaction, what you already know. So we need to deactivate this. Remember, when you get that fear signal, you only need it for a moment to then begin to pay attention to what you might need to do. But you're not thinking effectively and creatively or long-term when this is highly active. So we need to begin to calm it, need to begin to activate the prefrontal cortex area, and tapping works really well to be able to do that. The tapping points, where you're going to be tapping, you can tap or you can rub or you can do a pulsing pressure at any of these points to stimulate the activity there, and the sort of the wires that go from that point into the nervous system, into the organs, into the brain, to begin to positively influence them and to begin to neutralize the disruptive energy, or the flow, the irregular flow of the energy, or the extreme activation of the energy. Because emotions are energy in motion, emotion. And we need to begin to bring that down, calm that down, tune it back in, okay? Back it off, so to speak, so that we can think more effectively. Because when this is active, this starts to shut down, and our ability to think logically and not go out and hoard the grocery stores of toilet paper, because that's illogical for this, what the situation was. And so we can think and act in ways that are truly going to be helpful for us and not detrimental for others. So basically, you're going to stimulate different points in your body, right here on the karate chop, and then here at the top of the head, right at the very center of the top of your head. And we've got eyebrow point, and some of the points you have a right side and a left side as well, and some of the points are going to be in the middle of the body. I recommend you tap both sides where you've got bilateral points. You could just stay to one side, but I find that you get better, faster results when you stimulate both bilateral points. Right? So inside of the eye, also known as eyebrow point, between the bridge of the nose and the beginning of the eyebrow is where you're going to be tapping. And then side of the eye, just outside the corner of the eyes. And then under the eye, so right under the center of your eye, just on the top, the edge of where you feel your eye socket bone. And then you've got under the nose, under the lip. It's also referred to as chin point, but it's not on your chin. It's in this little divot above the chin, right below the lip. So it's under lip, or chin point is right here. Then you've got collarbone point. So if you can see on me, it's a little protruding, these little nodules right here on our collarbone. If you glide towards the hollow of your neck, it's going to be on either side. And you're going to go just a little bit below them and tap there. And then the next point is going to be under your arm. So it's about 4 inches below your armpit. For women, it's right where your bra strap is if you're wearing a bra. And it's just a little bit below the nipple point, right on the side of the body. So that's where you're going to be wanting. It's about 4 inches below the armpit, just a little bit below the nipple point. And I use all my fingers here to tap and get that point. Now, if you're doing bilateral tapping, there's 2 ways you can get the underarm point. You can either do what we call the hug, where you cross your arms over, and then each of my hands is getting the opposite underarm point. So you can do the hug, or if you're larger chested, that's harder for you to actually, get the whole circumference of your body and get your hands over there. So you can do what we call the monkey. I'm going to stand up for a moment. All right. So like this, and just rubbing like this, so you look like a monkey. Kids really love the monkey one. You could go like this, right? Or you could just use the backs of your hands to rub or to tap like this. Okay, so that's the underarm point. And then I also do the wrist point. Some people don't do the wrist point. Some people add the liver point, which is up here by the rib cage. That's harder for women to get to because of your breasts. So I usually skip that, but I do the wrist point, which is right here where your wrist bends forward. Again, if you're doing bilateral tapping, you just tap them together like this. Some people go like this. I tend to go like this. Okay, so those are the points. Karate chop, top of the head, inside of the eye, outside of the eye, under the nose, under the lip, collarbone, under the arms, wrists, and then back up at the top of the head again. You might see some slight variations if you start to learn a little bit more about EFT and going, sorry, I was reading a comment about a cat purring on the chest. But yeah, that would be great vagus nerve stimulation with that vibration. So these are the points. Now I'm just going to teach you a basic, a very basic, simple technique with the EFT today, because we're heading out of our time. But remember, I'm going to be doing live posts every day. So be on the lookout for those. If you're on my email list, then I'll be sending out emails to let people know. If you're on my Facebook page, I'll be putting announcements about live streams that I'll be doing and some more things that I'll be teaching, some more techniques with using EFT. But one of the simplest things you can do, again, just a way to start to calm yourself, is do what I call the tap and breathe. So at each of the points, you're just going to tap, and you're going to take 2 to 3 deep breaths while you continually stimulate that point. So you're going to take a deep breath in and let it go. Another deep breath and let it go. Another deep breath and let it go. There's a lot of things going on with this technique, a lot of things that are at play here of why this technique works. I'm not going to go into that right now, but just try it, okay? You don't have to know and understand how your cell phone works for you to just do what you need to do to make a call, use the camera, right? You know those basic steps so you can use your phone. You don't have to need to know all the mechanics of it and how it works for you to use it and for it to work for you, okay? So 2 to 3 deep breaths there at the karate chop point. And then you go to the top of the head and do 2 to 3 deep breaths there. It's also a good idea before you start the tapping to try to gauge, measure what, keep breathing as I'm talking, to sort of give a level of intensity of what you're feeling. Identify what you're feeling. Is it fear, anxiety, frustration, loneliness, uncertainty, anger, whatever it might be? And then to what level are you feeling it at a 0 to 10 scale, 10 being the most extreme you can imagine, 0 being it's gone, it's 0, it's not there. So note what level you're at before you begin the tapping, and then after you finish the round, so 2 to 3 deep breaths here on the eyebrow point. As you finish the round, getting back up to the top of the head again, you can tune back in to that feeling and notice how intense it feels now. If you could give it a number of 0 to 10. When we're working with children, we say, how big does it feel? And they can show with their hands. Younger children have an easier time with that than they do with the scale or some kind of item, like, what is it? Where do you feel it in your body even? So just keep doing 2 to 3 deep breaths as I go through each of the points while I talk. So notice where you're feeling that in your body. Usually some kind of constriction here in your breathing. Sometimes it feels like a heaviness somewhere, or it feels like a clamping down, or it feels like this, nausea in your stomach. Maybe it's like the size of a horse on your chest, or an elephant. Maybe it was an elephant, and then after you do a round, now it only feels like a horse. And then after another round, now it only feels like a big dog. And then maybe it feels like a little dog, or whatever it might be. Whatever you're like, however it represents itself to you, just recognize that. The brain can be really creative. And then notice after each round, if that's changed at all. It's lessened, it's lightened, it's moved, it's shrunk. You might notice yourself yawning or taking sudden deep breaths as you go through and you do the tapping. So notice any of these somatic body evidence sensations that's letting you know that it's being positively affected, it's subsiding. it's dissipating. Okay, and 2 to 3 deep breaths here at the collarbone point. And then here, 2 to 3 deep breaths under the arms. Wrists, 2 to 3 deep breaths. I'm just kind of going through it now. And then you go back up to the top of the head, ending there, 2 to 3 deep breaths. And then stop the tapping and just tune back in. Somebody commented they do better with circular deep rubbing on the pressure points instead of the tapping. Great, yeah. So many different ways to stimulate it. Just go with what feels good for you. If you're doing this because you have a headache, works really good with headaches, don't tap. Do some kind of rubbing versus the tapping, because that can exacerbate, the vibration can be a little bit too extreme and exacerbate what's happening in the nerves in the head. So the rubbing would be a little bit better, or the pulsing pressure when you're working with something like a headache. But EFT is very forgiving, and there's basic formulas, but you can go outside of the formula and still get results. So if what you're doing is working for you to dissipate the emotion, or you can use this on physical things in the body as well. If it's helping to improve it, keep doing what you're doing. Okay. So rubbing instead of tapping, that's great. If you started off and you gave yourself a rating, or you're noticing how you're feeling it in your body, just tune into that after one round. And if it's not to the level that feels more comfortable to you, where you can continue to do what you need to do, or you have a good sense of relief, then you just repeat. Start at the karate chop again, 2 to 3 deep breaths here. And then top of the head, 2 to 3 deep breaths. Inside of the eyes, 2 to 3 deep breaths. Side, under, right? And just do another round. And then tune back into the feeling, the physical feeling or the emotional feeling. Give it a rating, if you can, 0 to 10. The goal is to get less than a 5 if you're doing the rating. Ideal is to get to a 0 or as low as possible. Keep doing the rounds as long as it's having a continued impact for you, and get it as low as you possibly can. Okay, now there's some other ways to use tapping, which I'll be teaching. There's wording that you can add to the tapping that can have a greater impact if just doing something like the breathe and tap isn't enough. Oftentimes we need to do a little bit more with it to have the positive impacts that we want. Okay, so that's all that I have to share for now. If you have any questions, just type them in the box and I'll answer anything before I need to go. If you want to email me, it's lisa@themindtrainingcenter.com, and that's spelled in the English way of center, CENTER, not the English way. And I'll be happy to, again, answer any questions that you have, assist you in any way possible. And keep on the lookout for, you'll get, if you signed up for this, you'll get an email. And if you just clicked on the link from a post online, then you'll need to look me up, send me an email, tell me you want a copy of the video, and I will be happy to share that with you, as well as the hypnosis audio that I promised that I would send out, the safe feeling bubble, and creating a safe feeling within and around you. And you can listen to that whenever you need to during the day or before bed to help you to calm and be able to function more effectively. So, okay, yeah, thank you for that. So I'm going to sign out for now. Reach out personally if you need anything else, and just know that I'm here for you throughout the next couple of weeks. And let me know how I can best serve you, and any kind of particular topics that might be good for me to focus on when I'm doing the live streams. Take care for now. Be safe, wash your hands, and take care of yourself in the other ways to keep yourself calm and your immune system boosted. Bye.